Mercury. I'm Mercury Payton. I'm the town manager of Vienna, and I'm happy to have with me Councilmember Chuck Anderson. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Mercury.
And Director of Parks and Recreation, Leigh Herman. And with Historic Vienna, Leigh Kitcher. Hi, Leigh.
Hi.
And so the topic this evening is Liberty Amendments Month. This is something that has come about over the last couple of months, I guess dating back to last summer. And so before we get into the discussion and talk about this wonderful celebration that we're planning for this year and beyond, I just want to remind everyone to remember to wash your hands frequently, stay home if you're sick, make sure that you keep a good distance from others when you can, and wear your face covering, particularly when you're in close proximity to others. That will help us to beat the virus. So as we look at the topic of Liberty Amendments Month, this is something that is a celebration of four wonderful constitutional amendments. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship and due process to former slaves, to the 15th Amendment, which allowed for former slaves the right to vote, and then the 19th Amendment, which allowed women to begin voting, which was about 100 years ago, actually. So these four great amendments extend liberties and rights to those who were excluded from that previously before these amendments were approved in the U.S. Constitution. So we have Liberty Amendments Month, which starts on Juneteenth, actually this year, June 19th, and runs through July 19th. It's a 4-week celebration. In the town of Vienna, it's an official holiday, and that is a little bit of the background to what June will look like this coming year with Liberty Amendments Month. Also in the General Assembly, it passed in the House a recognition of Liberty Amendments Month with a 98-0 passage, and in the Senate with a 39-0 passage as well. So this is something that the General Assembly is behind completely, and we're excited about that. So at this point, I'll look to Leigh, who is our historian among us here, to help us understand this a little bit better. But I'll say that you were really very helpful to me this summer in framing up this original concept as far as the holiday itself, the third Monday of the month in July, so it'll be July 19th this year. So if you could provide some historical context and a validation of this celebration, that would be very helpful to us.
Thank you, Mercury. It was a pleasure to help you with this wonderful project. The celebration is a perfect way of celebrating what makes us so special. Now, the 13th Amendment came about at the end of the Civil War. Although Lincoln had abolished slavery during the Civil War in 1863, it only applied to those states in the South who were trying to secede. So on January 31st in 1865, the House of Representatives passed the proposed amendment to abolish slavery. And the amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. And after it was passed, they then put it out for the states to ratify. Unfortunately, President Lincoln died in April prior to the ratification of the amendment. The amendment was ratified on December 6th in 1865. While Section 1 of the 13th Amendment outlawed chattel slavery and involuntary servitude, Section 2 gave Congress the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Moving forward, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States was vigorously debated and resulted in several proposals being exchanged between the House of Representatives and the Senate. This amendment came about because Reconstruction highlighted problems with who can do what with respect to the abolishment of slavery. And there were quite a few rights that were being held back from the newly made citizens of the country. So this dealt with due process. So section 1 of the 14th Amendment said no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. This greatly expanded the civil and legal rights of all American citizens, protecting them from infringement by the states as well as by any federal government. The third clause, nor shall any state deprive any person of liberty, life, or property without due process of law, expanded the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment to apply to the states as well as the federal government. Over time, the Supreme Court has interpreted this clause to guarantee a wide array of rights against infringement by states, including enumerated in the Bill of Rights. And many court cases have followed this to enforce our protection of our due process and our rights. So the 14th Amendment was very important. Moving forward to the 15th Amendment, the 15th Amendment caused a great deal of argument amongst the women who had supported the abolitionist movement since its inception. And in fact, their fight for women's rights came along shortly after they started fighting for the rights of Black men to vote. And when it came time to decide who would be allowed to be voting, whether it would be women or Black men, that divided the women's rights movement into two parts. 2/3 of the women's rights women went with supporting Black men. Black men, every family should have a vote, was their view. The remaining third, led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, they went with no, women should have the right to vote first. So this divide caused many problems over many years. And fortunately, the 15th Amendment granted the right to vote to all men. Moving forward, and the 15th Amendment was ratified in 1870 in February. Moving forward to 1920, that's 50 further years. That's more than a generation later. That's when women got the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. And there's a long story about how women got it. And a lot of it was due to the picketing of the White House in 1917 and throwing the women who were picketing into prison at Lorton. So we had an exhibit on that at Historic Vienna some time ago, and it was quite interesting and sad. But fortunately, women got the right to vote, and it was ratified in 1920. The rest is history. Now we all have the right to vote, and our rights are fully protected by the laws of the United States, and the 14th Amendment guarantees them for everybody, whether you're any race, any color, any place that you came from, as long as you're a citizen or even just in some cases, a person living in the country, your rights are protected. If you're a citizen, you have the right to vote.
Thank you, Leigh.
Thank you, Mercury.
Mercury, it's been exciting working with you on this concept and seeing it come to fruition. This really is your brainchild and something that you've been very passionate about. What was your inspiration for this idea?
Well, looking back at the summer of 2020, last summer, there were a lot of events that were going on. It was a summer like no other, if you think about it. We were in the heart of a pandemic and other things going on. And then we also had a number of high-profile black individuals getting killed in our nation at the hands of law enforcement, whether by choking or gunshot. And our country, I think, was shaken this summer in ways it hadn't been probably for many years. I know that these occurrences have happened over the years, over the decades in our nation, and it's sad every time that it does happen. There's a long list of names and a long list of families that are impacted each year by these events. This year seemed to strike a chord in our nation that was a little bit different than in prior years. And so as these events began to unfold and I began to have conversations with my family and staff here, council members, just about what was going on. Right around that same time, particularly around June, Governor Northam talked about giving state employees the day off for Juneteenth, which was Friday last year, Friday, June 19th. And I sit on the Northern Virginia Regional Commission Chief Administrative Officers Board. I'm the chair this year, and a lot of the jurisdictions in the region were asking what they should do. Some jurisdictions decided to follow suit with the state, others didn't. And I started to look and see more about Juneteenth. I had heard about Juneteenth over the last 10 years or so. It had gained popularity and momentum nationwide. And as I was looking into Juneteenth and just kind of understanding that in a deeper way, the abolition of slavery came into my mind. I started looking into that. And the 13th Amendment codified, so to speak, put into the Constitution that slavery was illegal, that it would not be something that would be acceptable in our nation, in our culture. And as I thought about the 13th Amendment and what that meant and what it still means, it actually resonated with me because as much as we may be disappointed, as I may be disappointed in our nation sometimes about what I see happen, some things that are heartbreaking and just frustrating about our nation, our founding fathers, as imperfect as they were, many of them slave owners themselves, put a mechanism in place for their written document to be adjusted, to be amended, changed. They knew that what they had written was imperfect because they were imperfect people themselves. They knew that. And so to have a way to peacefully change something in our founding documents, I think speaks to the greatness of our nation. Now, we all know that when I say peacefully, the process is peaceful with regard to having an amendment. I mean, you have to go to Congress, there's a process with the House and the Senate, and then there's a process with the states, of course. But we all know that there was bloodshed to get to that point with the Civil War. So all of these things kind of resonated with me, and the 13th Amendment was kind of a catalyst in my mind. And what began to ring in my thought process was also the fact that in many of these cases with individuals dying at the hands of law enforcement was the concept of due process. And the 14th Amendment goes right to the heart of that question. No matter what an individual is doing, whether they're doing something wrong or not, whether it's a mistake that law enforcement makes or not, every individual that loses their life to law enforcement, in some measure, they're not afforded due process as they should, and so that's what kind of got me thinking about the 14th Amendment. Just as it reminds us that there is a right to due process. And many of the reasons why that Leigh just mentioned, that was the things that were occurring right after the Civil War, right after the abolition of slavery, and then there were issues that were going on. And our nation said that it is important to protect the rights of all Americans. And so then you get into the 15th Amendment, which granted former slaves the right to vote, particularly, as Leigh mentioned, men. And as you can see, it's kind of one happens, then the next, which is a catalyst for the next. And then you look at the 19th Amendment. And as I was looking at these amendments, I'm kind of intrigued by all of this. It dawned on me that 100 years ago, women were granted the right to vote, and just probably, I guess because of the nature of what last year was, with the pandemic and other things going on, and then all of the unrest around the nation, women getting the right to vote in 1920 just wasn't as prominent as I thought it should be. It should have been celebrated from coast to coast and every week, and we didn't really hear much about it. And so that's kind of the backdrop as to how I began to think deeply about something that everyone in our nation would be able to celebrate and be encouraged by. These four amendments, while they dealt with specific issues of that day, they grant protections to people beyond the original intent. If you think about slavery, well, there are all kinds of forms of slavery. And to say that slavery is illegal and it is abolished, and it is in our Constitution, that is something that is significant. And if you look at citizenship with the 14th Amendment, as well as due process, well, because it's in the Constitution now, it doesn't just apply to former slaves or children of former slaves or descendants of former slaves. It applies to anyone who's in our nation, due process, right? And then the right to vote for men, and then getting to 1920 with the 19th Amendment, the right to vote to women. These rights granted by these four great amendments, they put indelibly right in our Constitution. These are things that are afforded to every American. And so I'm passionate about that. I mean, I think that it just, again, it demonstrates to me that our nation is a place where if you are passionate about something and you are able to affect change, it doesn't just affect change for you necessarily, but by extension of that, it can impact a whole nation, maybe even affect the world and how we look at each other and how we treat each other. And so that's kind of a long answer to your question. I know I could probably talk for another half an hour about it, but that's where the idea came from, and I'm excited about it. And I'm really thankful that the town has adopted Liberty Amendments Day, which will be celebrated this year, as well as the month that's going to be celebrated. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. There are a lot of people who helped out along the way, and I appreciate, Leslie, your wisdom with this, and Leigh. I mean, I wanted to make sure that this was something that was historically accurate, whatever we were going to do, and Councilmember Anderson and Mayor Colbert and Maggie Kane, who's Director of Human Resources, and Lynn Cohen, our Marketing Communications Manager. A lot of people involved in this from the beginning, and it's just exciting to be a part of something that reminds us of how great our nation is, how great our nation can be, and how caring our nation can be. So I didn't create the amendments. I didn't cast a vote. I didn't, these things happened 100 years ago, but at the same time, I'm excited that we're putting these 4 amendments to the forefront so people can celebrate them and remember how we are to treat one another and that we have rights.
Thank you. And why do you believe a Liberty Amendment celebration is significant?
I believe it's significant because if we continue down the path that we appear to be on as a nation, and I say as a nation because, well, I know this is a celebration in Vienna, but as you can see, I've gone to General Assembly. The town has gone to General Assembly to have this recognized, and I would like to see it recognized on a national level. And it's significant because there's a lot of discourse in our space, in our daily lives, that people easily get divided. And I think this is something that we can all kind of come together around. I mean, I think that it's healthy and good for people to have different points of view and perspectives, and that's healthy. That's what makes us a great nation. But it's gotten to the point in which if you say that you are sad about a black person dying at the hands of law enforcement, sometimes that's misconstrued as if you're against law enforcement. Or if you say, well, I am for law enforcement, it's misconstrued as if you don't care about someone whose life died at the hands of law enforcement. And so we almost take almost every issue and we put them on separate paths. I think that Liberty Amendments Day and Liberty Amendments Month is for everyone. It is for police officers. There are black police officers. This is for women. There are women in all levels of government and society. This is for those who are encountering law enforcement and should have due process afforded to them. If you think about it, these amendments and the celebration of them is something that we all should hold dearly. And I'm excited that the way that we've kind of put this together, the 4th of July is at the heart of it, right? So Independence Day is right at the middle of the celebration. And again, it helps us to rally around something in a way where we can look at each other with care and concern and be united. Even if we have different opinions about a lot of things, we can still care for one another. And that's what I want people to think about when they think about Liberty Amendments Day and Liberty Amendments Month. They should think about how we can care for one another and be united with our nation and be patriotic in that way. So this is a good time to look to our distinguished council member, Chuck Anderson. And I know that this is something that's personal to you. Maybe you can explain to us a little bit about that.
So Mercury, when you volunteered me to be on this project, I actually kind of jumped at the chance because I've been a big fan of the Constitution for quite a while now, and I'll give you the origin story, if you will. When I was a junior in college, I had a history professor who basically ordered us all to go to the rare books room because no one visited the rare books room in the library. And on the day I went to visit, the librarian pulled out a copy of the second draft of the Constitution. Now, the second draft was printed. Only 50 copies were printed. It was printed in secret in 1787, in September, to be used as the markup for the final version of the Constitution. Only 15 are known to survive, and each one of the 15 is associated with one of the attendees of the Constitutional Convention. The copy I was shown happened to be the copy of George Mason. And it was covered with his notes and annotations, and all of a sudden, the Constitution became alive to me. I began to realize that this was a document written by men, imperfect, but with the objective of having men rule themselves according to law. It was a beautiful thing. And it led me into a quest that ended up with my college senior thesis on George Mason and slavery. And as part of that whole process, I spent hours and hours reading James Madison's notes on the Constitution. And that really brought history alive to me, to see that the way our fundamental document that rules us was formed was a bunch of men sitting around, throwing out ideas, not always agreeing, making some mistakes, but in doing so, creating a vehicle or a mechanism that would allow for change and for correction in the future, which was the amendments process. So I've always been personally very much interested in the Constitution, and was thrilled when I first heard your idea, because I think it's a great thing that we just, in our country, don't recognize how unique it is and what a valuable gift it is really to the world.
Yeah, it really truly is. And I know that you can't speak for all council members, but why do you think that this is an idea that is appealing to the council and something that they want to support?
Well, I can't speak for all council members, but I think I know this did pass unanimously in December to recognize it in the town of Vienna. And there was a lot of enthusiasm expressed for it. I think it appeals to us for a number of reasons. One is its inclusiveness. That is, it does celebrate the gradual growth of liberty to encompass all people, which is really the fulfillment of the lofty words of the Declaration of Independence and the lofty words found in the preamble to the Constitution. It's seriousness. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, but it's fun with a purpose. I hope that it helps people understand this unique gift that our nation has given to the world, which is a document that is a compact. It's a deal. It's a deal between the people and their government, a deal that comes with rights and obligations as well as freedoms. The concept, Mercury, really emphasizes progress. As you envisioned it, it's not a Constitution Day, which we have. I checked it out, but nobody really celebrates it. But it emphasizes the progression towards that more perfect union, which is what our founding fathers envisioned. They didn't think they would get it right out of the box. They knew that there were problems in it. Indeed, in the first year, they passed the first 11 amendments, which became the Bill of Rights. But they put in a process which would make it amendable. And so we're celebrating that part of it. And it's amendable by the people. Alexis de Tocqueville, who got the American experiment right in the 1830s, said, "It is better to give the power to change the people constitution to people who, however imperfectly, represents the people's will, other than to others who represent nobody but themselves." And that's what I love about it. It really does, it celebrates that progress. And it's a gift to ourselves, to Vienna, in our state. And perhaps, if we think big, the country, we, Vienna, and especially you, Mercury, can take full credit for this. You came up with the idea. You worked to build the political support in town and in Richmond to make it pass. And as its originator, Vienna and Liberty Amendments Day will be forever intertwined. And only good things can come to our town from that association. In fact, I think we're already getting a lot of positive attention in Richmond.
Yeah, that's true. We are. And again, I was pleasantly surprised to see the Senate and the House both unanimously pass this. But I think it's Also, it's important to note that Fairfax County Supervisor Walter Alcorn has been very supportive of this effort, as well as Senator Chap Peterson, who worked very tirelessly with the Senate Rules Committee to get this advanced, and Senator Mamie Locke, who was my professor at Hampton University in the political science department, was able to sponsor this in the Senate Rules Committee and to get it through to the full floor of the Senate and pass 39-0. Also, Delegate Mark Keem, who, when the first week or so, when I had the initial conversation with him, he talked about the fact that having Liberty Amendments Day would be something that would be widely supported in the General Assembly. And he also talked about the fact that if we did a month as well, that it would be something that could be a celebration that spanned a couple of weeks that could be replicated across the state. So I appreciate Delegate Keem's insight there. And then Delegate Lamont Bagby, who is the chair of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, he was very instrumental in getting support with the caucus, which includes both delegates and senators. And it was something that was, again, supported throughout the General Assembly. So they were very instrumental in making sure that this advanced. And then also the Virginia Municipal League. You know, they were very supportive of it and excited about the concept and idea. And they put it into their documents as far as what was important for this coming General Assembly session that we're in right now. So there's so many individuals that have been very supportive of this concept and idea along the way. And I'm very thankful to just be surrounded by so many caring people and people who look at the virtues of our Commonwealth here in Virginia and the virtues of Vienna and the virtues of our nation. I think they're all intertwined. And to see everyone here assisting and playing a role in making this happen is outstanding. I'd like to look to Leslie and Leigh because we've been talking about this month-long celebration. So this would be a good moment to talk about the celebration itself. So Leslie, talk a little bit about some of the ideas and concepts, what residents here in Vienna could expect with regard to the celebration.
Sure. So we're real excited about this. Of course, we being Parks and Recreation, we love special events, so that makes it even that much more enjoyable. So the town, as you had mentioned, the dates that Liberty Amendments Month will be held is June 19th to July 17th. And there will be a kickoff to start off the month celebration. And then it'll be a multicultural festival will complete the celebration. The main kickoff event will be held on Saturday, June 19th, which is Juneteenth. It'll be a 2 to 3 hour educational and cultural event to include an expression of the history of the amendment, a keynote speaker, some fun activities, and inspire thoughtful reflection on the amendment and its impact on the citizens. There'll also be a kids vote ballot, which was something that Leigh has initiated. Leigh, do you want to share about that?
Well, I thought it was a good idea for kids to learn at an early age that their vote can really have an impact. So I thought, let's find something that kids can vote on, that they can get excited about, and then let's implement it. Whatever they choose, whatever's the winning initiative, they will implement. So Leslie, you get to figure out what we're going to let them choose from.
Yeah, so I think it's that's going to be a lot of fun. And the idea that we've been toying around with our staff is taking some of our existing events and actually giving the kids choices as to who the performers are going to be. And so the kids can actually cast their ballot to determine, who they are voting for to perform at Kids on the Green or whatever event that we have coming up, Halloween on the Green. We have so many events that go on throughout the year, and the kids can cast their ballot throughout all the activities that are going to happen during the month. And then they'll be tabulated, and the winner will be announced at the Multicultural Festival. And then that will be implemented. And so the kids can feel like they actually can make a difference. They might not be 18, but they can make a difference here. So the Multicultural Festival, that'll be held on July 17th. It's a Saturday. And we're going to do a 5-hour cultural event, which will feature food, drinks, crafts, entertainment. And it's from around the world, so it's going to be celebrating everyone. We encourage local restaurants, youth groups, community organizations, and performers to participate in this. So it'll be held in the center of town on Church Street using our town green. So the area that we all gather for the majority of the events that are held here in town. And so that's the kickoff and then the finale. So everything that's going to happen in between there, the idea is to celebrate one amendment every week. Excuse me. So the 13th Amendment will start off the celebration with June 19th to abolish slavery. The 14th Amendment will start off the week of June 26th. That's the second week of the month-long celebration, and then continuing the 15th Amendment and the 19th Amendment. And the events will be free and open to the public, and they'll last about an hour long. And then they'll be focused on children and family, so very family-friendly. And we're asking for the community to get involved to organize and host these activities that are related to the amendments.
That sounds great. And so what are some of the, I guess, community organizations? I know we have like Rotary and Optimist Club that are participating with the planning of some of these. There's schools, businesses, arts groups. I mean, can all these groups participate, and how would they go about doing that?
Okay. Yes, everyone is welcome. So it's open to individuals, businesses, community organizations, anyone that wants to participate. So, and folks that are interested, they're welcome to host an event at their place of business or their place of worship, wherever they might have a facility to host it. If they're involved and interested in hosting an event, but they don't have a venue, the town is happy to provide that venue, whether it be the community center or now the town has the Faith Baptist Church as a new location. The town green, we have a number of different venues that we could help provide and be able to provide those at no charge for those organizations to host there.
That sounds very exciting. So how would someone get involved if they're watching right now or they hear later about this? How do they get connected and get involved?
Sure. So what we're doing is we're hosting monthly meetings. The monthly meetings will be held on the 4th Tuesdays of the month. We just had one this past in January, so we have one coming up. And anyone that's interested in being a part of this, and it's basically a discussion. So we can brainstorm, gather ideas. Folks can share with us what they'd like to do. If they don't have an idea of something in mind around the amendments, we'll have suggestions, so we can share those with them, and they can say, oh, that's a great idea. That seems relatively minimal effort to put together because we're able to help them along. They can do that. And so all they need to do is reach out to myself, Leslie Herman, or Lily Woodman, who's our special events coordinator, and we can connect them with a Zoom link so they can participate in that monthly meeting. And there's also an application process. So the application will be online next week. It's viennava.gov/liberty. So folks can go on the town's website and look it up, and the application will be there. So you complete the application, submit it to us, we review it, contact you. We'll do some brainstorming back and forth to kind of tweak things. You share with us which amendment you're interested in, what week you would like to or what day you would like to celebrate, because there's it could be any day. It could be, the kickoff is on a Saturday for the amendment, and then you have Sunday through Friday in order to hold an 1-hour event. So it could be for any age range. So we'll work with you, and so the deadline to submit your application is April 1st.
Great. That sounds really excellent.
Yep. And then there's also, just to give you an idea, there's a number of themes that folks can tap into. And Leigh, do you want to share a little bit about the different themes that we were talking about for the celebration?
Well, we thought that each of the amendments could focus on a different set of themes. And the themes include freedom, independence, abolition, citizenship, your rights and the infringement of rights, cultural belonging, inequality, voting, elections, creating change in general, women's rights, women's issues, women's contributions, family, education, culture. The Liberty Amendments give every person who has come to this country the same rights. So everybody, and we all are immigrants except the American Indians who had the land before we started taking it over. So every one of us is covered by these rights. So there's lots to celebrate here, an awful lot of celebration that we can do.
Thanks, Leigh. And there's a lot of great events that are out there that can incorporate these themes. So as Leigh mentioned, you can touch on history, entertainment, do workshops, have contests, whether it be art, photography, or writing. Have lectures. Authors can come in and promote books that are focused on the amendments. Have films, performances. There's so much so many different types of activities that could happen. From visual arts, we have Vienna Art Society that's interested in getting involved in having an exhibit, demonstration, tours, music. I know Leigh's interested in having a parade to celebrate women's
Suffrage parade.
Yes, and then also to do a walk, incorporating, we've got the WNOD Trail right here in town, incorporating a walk through the town, and then doing outreach and craft activities and even cooking classes. So that touches on our great diversity. So there's so much that's out there for folks to get excited about and hold events. And so our thought is that during these weeks that we're celebrating the amendments, that there'll be a multitude of different activities going on, and we'll put together a brochure so folks can take a look at it and they can kind of pick and choose what they'd like to go to. But there'll be so much that's out there that they can attend, and some of it will be because we will probably still be in COVID. We will be very careful that folks will have to follow the COVID restrictions and the guidelines by the CDC as we hold these events, and they have to be cleared through Fairfax County to make sure that we're doing everything safely. But some of them will be, they'll be live streamed, or some of them might be virtual, so folks can still participate if they don't feel comfortable coming out into the public yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and even restaurants can participate in these events. They can have Liberty Amendment themed dishes and drinks and celebrations on their own. So it really is inclusive for everybody.
So one of the things I think we have been trying to encourage is to people to use their imagination. You can fit almost any idea into this notion. I kind of liken it to a combination between a month-long street festival and a celebration with a serious purpose. Somehow, I think it can fit into these 4 amendments. So please, if you're considering it, let your imagination go wild. One of the things that I could envision is local lawyers and actors using this room here to do moot courts, to argue great courses under the particular amendments or cases that came up under those amendments. And I think that would be kind of fun for them and educational. But just use your imagination. I'd kind of like to close out by saying a few words about the idea. In my day job, I do a lot of traveling around the world, and I can't tell you how many times I've discovered that I get an extra day of vacation somewhere else, which isn't a bad thing because it's Constitution Day there. Almost every country that has a constitution celebrates it. We happen to have one, but we don't really celebrate it. And we're the country that really created the idea. We maybe borrowed from city-states and a few places like that. But the notion of a series of laws created by the people to govern ourselves is really the unique American gift. And I don't think we pay as much attention to it as we should. Celebrations begin with small groups and individuals. Memorial Day actually was started spontaneously in 25 different places. Mother's Day, Anna Maria Jarvis decided to celebrate her own mother, and it became a national holiday. Labor Day was actually started by trade unions and labor groups. We're following that. Virginia also has a very rich history of being at the head of the line when it comes to creating commemorative events. Warrenton, Virginia was one of the first places to celebrate Memorial Day, and that Anna Maria Jarvis actually was a graduate of Mary Baldwin College. I think we in Vienna are following in that tradition, and I'm very proud to be part of that. I really do want to thank all of the groups and the associations who have already eagerly said, yeah, we'll take part in this. This sounds good to us. This really is a people's event, and just as the Constitution is the people's document. I also really want to thank the town staff for adding yet another Vienna holiday event. These celebrations are a lot of hard work, but these are the celebrations that make Vienna special. This is what makes us unique. This is what keeps us at the top of the list, and this is why so many people want to live here. And I finally want to express my gratitude to the town manager for thinking up this idea. But more than just thinking it up, Mercury, you thought it, but you didn't let it die. You had the courage to articulate it and then push it. And that is something that's not easy to do, especially in a summer of strife. You've come up with an antidote to that. And it's timely, and it's about time that it happened, it seems to me. As you can tell, there's a lot of people already at work to make this a wonderful event. But we need more. We need more people to join this movement. We need to show our town. We need to show Northern Virginia. We need to show the state, and even perhaps the country, of how to celebrate progress toward our more perfect union.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, those are very well put thoughts about all of this, because this is something that should be unifying and is really something that can be exciting for everyone. And so I can't wait for it to get here. I want June to be here tomorrow to see how all of this will unfold. And as you just stated, Councilmember Anderson, you know, this summer is going to be something where I think the region and the Commonwealth is going to be watching, and they're going to replicate what we do here, and we'll keep pushing into the summer and the fall and spreading the word about this. And so hopefully next year there'll be other jurisdictions that will do something similar to what we're going to do this coming year. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you all spending time with me this evening and on Deck with Mercury. I know that the three of you are very busy individuals, and so to lend your time to this conversation, I really appreciate it. And so as we close the evening, just wanted to remind everyone that our next On Deck with Mercury is going to be at the Community Center. It's going to be on March the 9th, and the topic is going to be an open discussion. It's going to be an opportunity for residents to come to the Community Center and talk about whatever is on your mind, and I will do the best I can to answer your questions. And if I don't have an answer to your question, I certainly will write that down and get back with each resident who asks a question that I can't answer on the spot. So I look forward to our very first open mic, I guess you could say, with On Deck with Mercury, which will happen next month. So again, thank you to Councilmember Anderson and Leigh and Leslie, our Director of Parks and Recreation. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and a safe rest of your week. Take care.